Traditionally, the church looks at business people as sinners in the marketplace, like tax collectors in Jesus' time. So they should be coming to church to support the business and the ministry. The role of business people is only financial support. I think it's not a right way of looking at business people. We need to empower business people as marketplace ministers. And once you do them, I believe in the biblical verse, whatever you do it all for the glory of the Lord. That includes even doing business. You do business for God's glory. And when you give them that due respect and the due release them for their calling, you are doing for God's glory. The business people are able to overcome that barrier that's blocking their mind, the spiritual barrier. They don't go to the world, Lord, I'm trying to make money as much as possible so that I can do something holy, spiritual somewhere else. No. When they come to business, Lord, thank you, Holy Spirit, that you brought me to this place. I'm here to minister to this land. You set them free. This guy is greatly equipped to come and conquer the place for Jesus.
Dual agency is when a particular real estate agent or broker represents both the buyer and the seller. For instance, Keller Williams is a brokerage, and there is a broker of record whose license is registered as the broker for that office. If somebody from that office has a buyer and somebody else from that office has the seller, that's dual agency. If I represent a buyer and a seller on my own property and I represent both parties, that's also dual agency.
In terms of establishing whether or not a transaction is a dual agency transaction, the buyer and the seller, the buyer in particular, is going to know that up front. Then the buyer is going to know that he's asking an agent to write an offer for him who already has the listing on the property. That's a choice that the buyer makes. Many buyers decide not to do that. They go find other representation.
Many buyers won't buy a house unless they're buying it from the selling agent. The selling agent normally knows more about the property, and the disclosures are a little more complete. Many times a better price can be negotiated.
It's hard because you're wearing two hats. So you're representing the seller, you're representing the buyer, and this is in the situation where you as the agent are representing both people. It's not where the broker of record has two agents that are representing the parties individually. It gets hard because, and it's more work actually for us, because we have to be very careful that the buyer and the seller consistently believe, as they should, that we're representing their best interests.
In the agency disclosure document that you sign with a buyer or a seller, the first thing it spells out is that the agent has a fiduciary responsibility. And you have that responsibility to both sides. You need to represent them both to the best of your ability and to keep them intact and whole and not at risk.
Basically, it is completely and totally up to the buyer to have a comfort level there. Again, it's this whole issue of checking on the broker. If you really do want to work with the listing broker for some peculiar reason, you want to create this dual agency situation, then you need to at least check that broker's credentials out. At least that's what I would do. I would check them out and make sure that they're an honest and upright and reputable broker.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Mark Pulusovic, and you're wondering how to become a businessman. The answer is simple. Read a lot, learn a lot. Warren Buffett said it himself. He said, it's good to learn from your mistakes. It's better to learn from other people's mistakes. There's no better way to learn from other people's mistakes than to read, than to seek out mentors, and to seek out people who are successful in what it is that you're doing and learn from their mistakes, learn from what they did wrong so you don't have to do the same thing. That's exactly what I do every day of my life. I read different books. I'm reading a book by Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, and he has a thick book, a huge life story of him sharing all his mistakes, all his successes, all his ways of thinking, all his beliefs, all his ideas, and all that stuff is constantly being poured into my head. So it can't do anything but good for me and my dreams of becoming a truly successful, highly successful entrepreneur. So it's a beautiful thing that we can it's a beautiful time period we live in that you just found me on YouTube, most likely. You can search Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, some of these great businessmen. You can search and listen to them speak and share, take in their ideas. That's the best way to become a businessman, a truly successful businessman, learning from the best.